Rain taps gently against a fogged window. A low hum of static fills the dark as an old radio flickers to life. Somewhere, in a dimly lit room, a voice begins to speak, calm, measured, and heavy with warning. Some stories, the narrator whispers, aren't meant to be told, but they never stop happening. A faint echo follows the words, almost like another voice repeating them, but distorted, distant, buried in static. The sound design is cold and intimate. You can almost hear the creak of wooden floors beneath unseen footsteps, the rustle of curtains as though someone just passed by. The scene fades into a montage, quick, cinematic glimpses that feel like fragments of nightmares. A flickering hallway light in a rundown apartment complex. A car abandoned at the edge of a forest, its door swinging open in the wind. The dim reflection of a woman crying silently in her bathroom mirror. Each image lasts only seconds, but every one of them feels too real, too close, like memories you shouldn't have seen. As the visuals continue, the narrator's tone deepens. For years, people have shared stories of things they can't explain. Things that don't belong to this world. Things that feed on silence, grief, and fear. The words echo under an ominous, low-frequency hum, the kind that you feel more than hear. Somewhere in the background, a whisper threads through. A child's giggle, a faint knock, a soft intake of breath. The pacing is slow, hypnotic, pulling the viewer into a trance. The imagery shifts, now a suburban street at night. A single lamppost flickers above an empty swing. The wind is still, unnaturally so. A door opens by itself in the distance, the hinges groaning like something old and unwilling. Then darkness. Total. The sound of a heartbeat fades in, slow and steady. It feels like it's coming from the same room as you. The narrator's voice returns, softer now, almost like a secret. You don't have to believe in ghosts to be haunted. All it takes is one sound, one shadow, one night that never ends. A low, trembling note swells as the heartbeat grows louder. The radio static returns, layered with faint whispers, snippets of voices that can't quite be understood. A man saying help, a woman crying, a child counting from 1 to 10. The whispers overlap, building to a point where they almost sound like a chant. Suddenly, everything cuts to silence. After a long pause, we hear faint breathing, close, right beside the microphone. Then a single phrase, delivered just above a whisper. Would you believe them if it happened to you? The title flashes across the screen. 6 true, most horrifying paranormal horror stories that will shock you. Thunder cracks. The screen flickers like an old film reel catching fire, then cuts to black. The narrator's voice fades back in, steady and haunting. Tonight, we begin with a story about loneliness, obsession, and a shadow that refused to leave. A dim light appears, the faint outline of an apartment door marked 403. The sound of keys jingling, a nervous sigh, and the door creaking open. Story 1. The static hum returns, slow, steady, unnerving. As the first true story begins, the door creaks open, its sound echoing through the narrow hallway like a sigh that's been waiting years to escape. Elena steps inside, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. The apartment smells faintly of dust and damp wood, as if it hasn't been truly lived in for a long time. She flicks the light switch. It hesitates before coming to life, buzzing faintly above her head. The bulb trembles, casting a thin yellow light across walls painted the color of old paper. She stands still for a moment, staring at her new home, a 1-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor of a half-empty building. It isn't much, but after the divorce, it's all she can afford. She's tired of explaining herself to people. Tired of the looks, the quiet pity. Here, in apartment 403, she hopes for silence. But the silence here doesn't feel peaceful. Feels aware. Days pass quietly. Elena works from home as a freelance photo editor, spending most of her time staring at screens. Nights are long, filled with the hum of city traffic below and the distant sound of dripping pipes. She tells herself she's fine. She tells herself she's moving on. But then the noises begin. At first, it's soft, the faint sound of footsteps from the apartment above. Except the landlord told her that unit's been vacant for months. Then there's the sound of something brushing against her door, like fingers dragging slowly down the wood. When she checks through the peephole, the hallway is empty. She laughs it off. Maybe it's the building settling. Maybe it's her nerves. But that night, while scrolling through her phone, she catches something in the reflection of her screen. A dark shape behind her, near the window. She turns immediately, but nothing's there. The curtain sways slightly, even though the window is closed. She begins to notice other things. Her picture frames tilt on their own. A mug slides a few inches across the kitchen counter when she isn't looking. And sometimes, when she wakes up in the middle of the night, she feels someone sitting at the edge of her bed. The days blur together. Her eyes grow tired, red from lack of sleep. She calls her landlord, mentioning the noises, the movement. He sounds disinterested. "It's an old building," he says. "Things creak. You'll get used to it." But Elena doesn't get used to it. The apartment feels like it's closing in. The air thick, heavy, colder near the corners of the room. Shadows seem darker than they should be, stretching longer, moving slightly when she's not watching. One night, she decides to set up her camera. She tells herself it's for proof, to show her landlord, to show herself that she isn't losing her mind. She places it on the dresser facing her bed, the red recording light blinking faintly in the dark. It's 2:47 a.m. When she wakes up suddenly, heart pounding. The air feels thick, wrong. The streetlight outside flickers once, and in that flash of dim light, she sees it. A shadow, standing by her closet. Tall, still, human-shaped, but darker than anything in the room. She freezes. Her throat locks. The shadow doesn't move, but somehow, she can feel its attention, as if it's looking straight at her even without eyes. The next morning, the camera is still recording. She plays the footage with shaking hands. For the first few hours, nothing. Then, at 2:47, the video catches it, the dark shape appearing in the corner of the room, then slowly gliding forward. As Elena tosses in her sleep, it moves closer, then closer, until it's standing directly over her. It bends down, the dark outline of a head hovering just inches from her face. Then the camera glitches, the screen fills with static, and when the image returns, the bed is empty. Elena stares at the footage in shock. The moment she looks away, she feels something behind her. Cold breath against her neck, as though someone is leaning in to whisper. She screams and runs out of the apartment, down the hall, barefoot and trembling. She spends the night in her car, gripping her steering wheel until sunrise. The next day, she calls the landlord again, demanding answers. He sighs, reluctant, as if he's had this conversation before. "You're in for 03, right?" he says. There's a pause, a faint nervous chuckle. "You're the first to last more than a month there. The others didn't even make it 2 weeks." "What do you mean, the others?" she asks, her voice shaking. But he hangs up. Elena never returns to apartment 403. Her belongings are still there, the camera, the footage, everything. Weeks later, the landlord opens the unit again for inspection. The air inside is freezing, though the heat is on. On the wall above the bed, written faintly in what looks like soot, are 4 words. "You should have stayed." The lights flicker once, and the door slams shut behind him. Static fades in. The narrator's voice returns, low and steady. "Not every haunting starts with death. Sometimes, it begins with loneliness." The sound of the flickering light continues for a few seconds, then silence. Story 2. The water is black this far down. No sunlight reaches here, only the pale, trembling glow of dive lights cutting through clouds of silt. The deeper they descend, the more the world above seems like a dream that's been forgotten. 3 divers move silently through the cold, each breath echoing in their helmets like a mechanical prayer. Their names are Kento, Daichi, and Haru, friends since childhood, bonded by a shared love of the ocean. Tonight, they've returned to a dive site off the coast of Okinawa, where a shipwreck known as the Maboroshi lies buried beneath 70 meters of water. Local fishermen whisper about it, how they hear voices near the reef on still nights, how sometimes the sea answers when no one speaks. Kento doesn't believe in curses. He's a scientist, a marine archaeologist with a taste for truth. The ocean, to him, is a place of reason. Every current has an explanation, every sound a source. But that conviction begins to falter as soon as he crosses the 70-meter mark. The first sound isn't a voice. It's a vibration, like a whisper too low to hear clearly. He stops mid-swim, glancing around. The others don't seem to notice. "Did you guys hear that?" he says through the comms. Only the crackle of static responds. They move forward, hovering above the skeleton of the ship. The Maboroshi rests on her side, ribs of rusted metal exposed like the bones of something long dead. Daichi shines his flashlight across the hull, illuminating faded kanji etched into the steel. Kento's light follows, and he feels something tighten in his chest. A strange pull, as if the ship is aware of them. Then he hears it again. This time it's clearer. A voice, faint, soft, rising through the static of his headset. A woman's voice. "Kento," he freezes. The air in his tank feels suddenly heavier. His breath quickens, fogging the inside of his mask. "Daichi? Haru? Who said my name?" No one answers. The voice hums again, distant, melodic, like it's coming from inside the ship itself. Kento knows he should surface, that something isn't right, but curiosity wins. He swims closer to the broken hull, shining his light through the jagged opening. Inside, the shadows seem to move on their own. He squeezes through, scraping his shoulder on rusted metal. The beam of his flashlight drifts across the wreck. Chairs overturned, crates half buried in sand, old plates still resting on tables. Everything looks untouched, preserved by time and silence. Then he sees them, figures, dozens of them, pressed into the walls of the ship as though melted into the steel. Their faces are human, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide and glassy. Their hands are raised, reaching out, frozen in place. Kento's breathing turns ragged. What is this?" he whispers. The comms crackle to life, Daichi's voice shouting through static. "Kento, get out of there. The readings are off the charts, your oxygens." Then the voice cuts out, and the woman's voice returns. Louder now, closer. "Stay with us." The light flickers. One of the figures on the wall shifts just slightly. Kento gasps, dropping his flashlight. It lands in the sand, the beam spinning wildly, revealing more faces in the dark. For a moment, he thinks he sees one that looks like his own. He pushes off, trying to swim back through the opening, but the passage seems smaller now, tighter, closing. His body feels heavier, his limbs sluggish. The whispers surround him from every direction. Hundreds of them, all overlapping, all calling his name. "Kento, stay, stay." He screams into the comms. "Daichi, Haru, pull me up." Nothing but static. The last thing Kento sees before everything goes black is a reflection. His own face in the visor, smiling back at him even though he isn't. 2 days later, rescue divers find Daichi and Haru unconscious near the surface. They remember almost nothing. The footage from Kento's body camera is corrupted except for a few seconds, his breathing growing faster, then slower, then a faint, distorted whisper right before the video cuts out. "Come down where we belong." The ocean takes him quietly, leaving no trace. Months later, a local fisherman swears he hears something through his sonar one night. A faint voice speaking from the deep. The words are muffled, almost lost in the distortion, but he's certain of what he hears. Someone saying a name. "Kento." The narrator's voice fades in over the sound of distant waves. Calm, sorrowful, resonant. The ocean doesn't forgive curiosity. It buries the answers and those who look too closely. The waves fade into static. A soft hum rises, followed by silence. And then, faintly, the sound of someone breathing underwater. Story 3. The dorm room smelled faintly of vanilla candles and dust. Maya sat cross-legged on her bed, scrolling aimlessly through her phone as the rain tapped softly against the window. Outside, the campus was wrapped in fog, the kind that makes everything look still, almost frozen in time. She had moved in only a week ago, happy to finally have a room to herself. Her previous roommate had dropped out mid-semester, leaving in such a hurry that half her things were still in the closet when Maya arrived. The housing office promised to send someone to clean it out, but no one ever did. So Maya had pushed the extra belongings to one side. Old notebooks, a chipped mirror, a faded blue blanket, and decided to ignore them. First, it was peaceful. She liked the quiet. After years of sharing space, silence felt like a small luxury. But silence has a way of drawing attention to things that shouldn't be there. It started subtly. The faint sound of movement at night, the soft click of the bathroom door, the whisper of fabric brushing against the floor. Once, she woke up to find the bathroom light on. She assumed she'd forgotten to turn it off, though she was sure she hadn't used it since the evening before. Then there were smaller things. Her cereal box slightly turned, her hairbrush moved from the desk to the floor, an extra toothbrush resting in the holder by the sink. She laughed it off to her friends. Guess my ghost roommate likes mint toothpaste. They laughed too. But alone, late at night, the joke didn't feel so funny. Maya started double-checking things before bed. Locking the window, turning off the lights, arranging her books neatly on the desk. But by morning, something was always different. A drawer left open, her laptop screen faintly glowing, though she'd shut it down. And once, her bed covers were neatly folded as if someone had made the bed while she slept in it. It was unnerving, but still, she didn't want to seem paranoid. She was already struggling with classes, and her friends joked that the stress was making her see ghosts. So she said nothing, until one night around 2 a.m. when she woke to the sound of soft humming. Her room was dark except for the sliver of streetlight sneaking through the blinds. The humming was faint, a tune she didn't recognize, slow and almost childlike. She sat up, blinking into the shadows. "Hello?" she whispered. The sound stopped instantly. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the dark, and for a moment, everything was still. Then she saw it, the outline of someone sitting at the foot of her bed. A girl, barely visible, her long hair falling over her face. Maya froze, her heart hammered in her chest. "Who's there?" she whispered, voice shaking. The figure tilted its head slightly, as though curious. Then, in the dim light, Maya saw her smile, wide, soft, and wrong. The girl didn't move closer. She just sat there, watching. Maya squeezed her eyes shut, convinced it was a dream. When she opened them again, the girl was gone. The room was empty. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, she convinced herself it had been a hallucination. Sleep paralysis, maybe. But when she went into the bathroom, the mirror was fogged over, even though she hadn't showered. Across the glass, written in the condensation, were 4 words, "I never left." Her breath caught in her throat. The handwriting was small and neat, the letters trailing downward as if written by a trembling hand. She rushed out of the room, heart pounding, and called her friend Lila to come over. But when Lila arrived, the message was gone. The mirror was clear. Everything looked normal, too normal. "Maya, you need sleep," Lila said gently. "You've been studying nonstop. You're just exhausted." Maya nodded, pretending to agree. But that night, she recorded everything. Her phone camera propped on the desk, facing her bed, just in case. Hours passed quietly. Then, sometime after 3 a.m., the door creaked open by itself. The girl walked in, pale, silent, her bare feet leaving no sound on the floor. She moved toward the closet, then turned her head, looking directly into the camera. Her mouth formed the words, "Why are you in my room?" The recording ends there. No one has seen Maya since the following morning. Her friends thought she'd gone home for the weekend. When campus security entered her room days later, everything was untouched. Her phone was on the desk, still recording, the battery dead. The closet door was slightly open, and inside, neatly folded, was a blue blanket. On the top shelf, written in faint pen on the wall, they found an old name tag from years before. Resident, Lila Watanabe. The same Lila who had moved out months ago. The same Lila who'd told Maya to get some sleep. The narrator's voice drifts softly back in, calm, reflective, almost sorrowful. Sometimes the dead aren't haunting the place. They're haunting the people who take their place. The sound fades out, the soft hum of the same eerie tune from before, looping quietly as the darkness deepens. Story 4. The screen fades to black. For a long moment, there is only silence, the kind that hums faintly, like the air itself is listening. Then, a voice emerges through the dark, calm, deep, intimate. Fear is older than language. It was the first emotion to teach us how to survive, and the last one that ever truly leaves us. The words drift softly, almost poetic, accompanied by the distant sound of rain against glass and the faint creak of a chair in an empty room. A candle flickers somewhere off-screen, its flame bending as if disturbed by an unseen breath. The tone is slower now, a deliberate change of pace. After the stories of possession and shadows and lost souls, this moment feels quieter, reflective. The narrator isn't trying to scare the listener. Not yet. They're trying to understand something. When you were a child, the voice continues. You learned that darkness could hide anything. The monsters in your closet, the shapes under your bed, the whisper that didn't sound like your own. But what if fear isn't the darkness itself? What if fear is what you bring into it? The scene cuts to slow, cinematic imagery. A flickering lamp in an empty hallway, a clock ticking past midnight, rainwater running down a cracked window pane. A lone moth flutters near the flame of a candle, drawn to the very thing that could destroy it. Every story you've heard tonight was real to someone, the narrator says softly. Every scream, every shadow, every whisper. They belonged to a person who was sure they were awake. That's what makes it so much worse. The pacing is slow, hypnotic, each word lingering. The background score is minimal, built only on a heartbeat rhythm and the faint swell of ambient tones. Feels like being underwater or deep inside a dream you can't wake from. People always think fear is about ghosts or monsters or something outside themselves. But real fear, the kind that makes your chest tighten and your blood run cold, that comes from within. The sound of breathing joins the audio, not the narrators, but something else. A faint, steady inhale and exhale, like another presence sharing the same room. Fear lives where logic ends. It feeds on the unknown, on the question you can't answer. Was that a voice? A shadow? A dream? You tell yourself it wasn't real, because that's easier than admitting it was. A faint echo repeats the last word, was. Like the walls are whispering it back. The candle flickers again, the light stretching across the wooden floor to reveal dusty footprints leading away from the chair. Most people think the scariest stories are the ones where something happens. The voice murmurs, slower now, quieter. But the truth is, the scariest stories are the ones that never end. The ones that linger after the lights go out. The ones that make you question if you're still alone. There's a soft scrape, like a chair moving slightly, though no one's in the frame. The rain outside grows louder, tapping harder against the window. Thunder rolls somewhere far away. Fear doesn't vanish when the story ends. The narrator continues. It hides in the quiet moments. When you think you're safe. When the screen fades to black and the room grows silent. That's when it waits. Because that's when you finally listen. The voice grows softer, almost like a lullaby. Every fear has a shape. Some wear faces. Some whisper names. And some just watch. A single note from a piano rings out, echoing into emptiness. Then silence again. Long, stretching, endless silence. You can almost hear the ticking of the clock, the faint hum of an old refrigerator, the quiet crack of wood shifting in the walls, the small, unnoticed sounds that fill the spaces between seconds, the ones that make you realize how much noise true silence holds. Maybe that's why we tell these stories. The voice says finally, a faint tremor in the tone, to give shape to what we don't understand, to speak the unspeakable. To convince ourselves that the thing in the dark can be named. The sound fades. The candle flickers once more, then extinguishes itself. The darkness that follows feels heavier, complete, swallowing every trace of light. The next story, the narrator whispers, almost too quietly to hear, is one even the priests refuse to tell. A distant choir hum rises, ghostly and low, the echo of old church bells buried under static. The darkness shifts, revealing the faint outline of a cross on a cracked wall. A wind passes through, carrying the echo of children's laughter. Story 4. The sound cuts to silence, and for a heartbeat too long, it feels like someone is standing right behind you, breathing softly in the dark. The wind outside moans like something alive. The camera glides over an abandoned two-story farmhouse in rural Kentucky. Its wooden walls split with time, its paint long surrendered to the rain. A field of dead cornstalks surrounds it like sentinels, brittle, unmoving, whispering faintly when the wind sighs through them. It's late evening, the light gray and thin, and the house seems to absorb every sound instead of echoing it back. Inside, the air feels thick. The faint hum of something electrical, mechanical, wrong vibrates through the walls. At first, you might think it's the sound of old pipes or wind trapped in the rafters. But if you listen closely, you realize it's not random. It's rhythmic. It's humming, like a song trying to remember itself. The story follows Ellen, a 33-year-old mother of two who recently inherited this farmhouse from her estranged uncle. She arrives with her husband Mark and their children, Sam and Abby, hoping to renovate it into a quiet place away from the city. The first night, they laugh off the creaks, the flickering lights, the strange hum in the walls. But Ellen doesn't sleep. Lying in bed, she feels a vibration deep in the floorboards, like something beneath her is breathing. The next day, she starts hearing it more clearly. Not just humming a tune. A low, droning melody that rises and falls in strange intervals. The same few notes looping endlessly. She finds herself humming it without realizing. When Mark asks her where she heard it, she can't remember. The cinematography slows here. Every shot deliberate, saturated in pale light and muted color. Dust motes float through the air as Ellen walks through the house, tracing her hand along the cracked wallpaper. The humming grows louder when she touches certain spots on the wall, as if the sound is pulsing beneath the plaster. One evening, she pulls a section of wallpaper away and finds something carved into the wood beneath. Circular patterns, symbols overlapping in spirals, and a faint line of dried, rust-colored residue tracing the center. She tells herself it's paint. She tells herself her uncle was eccentric. But when she closes her eyes that night, she dreams of standing in the hallway, the humming all around her, vibrating through her bones, and behind her, something breathing softly in time with the sound. By the third night, Mark is frustrated. He can't hear it. The kids are frightened, saying the walls sing at night. The camera lingers on Ellen's face, dark circles under her eyes, her lips twitching as if she's fighting the urge to hum again. The atmosphere is oppressive, claustrophobic. You can almost feel the low frequency in your chest, like a slow, steady heartbeat. At 2:17 a.m., Ellen wakes to find her daughter standing at the foot of her bed, humming the same tune, her eyes open, unfocused. Ellen rushes to her, shaking her awake, but Abby's small hands grip her wrists with unnatural strength. When Abby speaks, her voice overlaps with others. A chorus of tones, deep and hollow. "The house remembers," she says, before collapsing into silence. The next morning, Ellen finds Abby asleep in her own bed, with no memory of what happened. Mark insists they leave, but Ellen can't. Something in her feels tethered to the sound, as though leaving would tear something vital from her. She goes down to the cellar, a place they hadn't touched yet, and finds it colder than anywhere else in the house. Cobwebs hang like silk veils. The humming is deafening now. She sees old floorboards warped in the shape of a circle, and as she kneels, her hand brushes against a section that feels warm to the touch. The humming stops. For the first time, absolute silence. Then, a whisper so soft it almost blends with her own breath. "You shouldn't have woken us." The camera pulls back as Ellen's candle flickers and dies. For a heartbeat, the frame is black. Then, from the dark, a sound, deeper now, fuller, like 1,000 voices vibrating together. The wood trembles. The walls shift. Something beneath the floor begins to move. Mark hears the scream from upstairs and rushes down, his flashlight cutting through dust and darkness. The light catches on something dripping down the wall. Not blood, but sap, dark and thick. The carvings beneath the wallpaper have begun to glow faintly, pulsing like veins. He calls her name. Silence. Then the faintest sound, the humming again, but it's her. Ellen's voice, coming from inside the walls. Mark falls back, the flashlight dropping from his hand, spinning across the floor. It catches a glimpse of her reflection in the old cellar mirror, but she's not standing there. Just the faint shimmer of movement within the glass, her mouth open in an endless hum. The shot lingers as the humming swells, filling the entire soundscape, vibrating the house itself. Dust falls from the ceiling. The walls expand and contract as though inhaling. The screen fades to black, but the hum continues. Quiet, low, constant. Then, the narrator's voice returns, soft and unervingly calm. They tore the house down in 1998, but the workers swore they could still hear something. Faint, underneath the rubble. A song. The same one that never ended. The hum fades slowly into silence, replaced by the sound of distant wind. And then, the faint tick of a clock beginning the next story. It begins on a lonely stretch of highway outside Denver. The road is slick with recent rain, the yellow lines glimmering under passing headlights. A car speeds through the night. A silver sedan, windshield streaked with water, wipers dragging back and forth in tired rhythm. Inside, Ryan Keller, 27, drives with one hand on the wheel and the other clutching a half-empty coffee cup. His phone sits on the passenger seat, screen lighting up with notifications he ignores. He's been driving for hours, heading home from a late shift at the hospital. The radio hums low, static drifting between songs. The atmosphere is calm, a deceptive lull. The hum of the tires on wet asphalt lulls him into a kind of trance. Every few miles, a road sign flashes by. Next gas, 28 miles. The world outside is all shadows and mist. But then, as the camera pans across the road, the faint outline of something appears ahead. A figure standing by the shoulder, still and small beneath a flickering streetlight. Ryan squints, slowing down. A woman, mid-30s maybe, drenched, hair plastered against her face. She raises one trembling arm and waves. Her eyes, even from a distance, are wide, terrified. Against his better judgment, Ryan pulls over. He rolls down the window slightly. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" Her voice trembles. "Please, my car broke down. I've been here for hours." He nods quickly, unlocking the doors. "Get in. I'll take you somewhere safe." As she opens the door, the interior light flickers. Just once, but enough to cast her shadow across the dashboard. She doesn't smell of rain or earth like you'd expect. She smells faintly of iron and something old. She sits quietly, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the windshield. Ryan tries small talk. Where she's from, what happened, but she barely responds. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft, monotone. "It's dangerous to stop on this road after midnight." He forces a chuckle. "Yeah, I've heard that one before." "No," she says quietly. "You really shouldn't have stopped." The tension grows slowly, like a rope tightening. The camera cuts to close-ups. The twitch of her fingers, the rain sliding down the glass, the rhythm of Ryan's nervous breathing. Outside, fog thickens until the world beyond the headlights disappears completely. Then, without warning, the radio bursts into static. Ryan jumps, fumbling for the dial, but the noise only grows louder. A hiss mixed with faint whispers, like overlapping voices. The woman's reflection in the windshield doesn't move, even as she turns her head to look at him. "You hear it too," she murmurs. The sound fades into silence. Ryan forces a smile, trying to shake the chill in his spine. Must just be interference. She doesn't answer. Instead, she leans closer to the glass, whispering, "It's almost time." He glances at her, her lips moving but no sound coming out. Her breath doesn't fog the glass. And then, in a flash of headlights, he sees it. Her reflection in the rearview mirror is gone. The car swerves. He gasps, gripping the wheel. The woman is still sitting beside him, calm, staring straight ahead. "Keep driving," she says softly. "Don't look back." "What?" "Whatever you do, don't stop." The tone is flat, almost command-like. The fog outside thickens until the road disappears entirely. Ryan's heart pounds as he leans forward, squinting. That's when he sees it. A shadow standing in the middle of the road, tall, motionless. No features, just a shape. He slams the brakes. The car skids, tires screeching. But when it stops, there's nothing there. The woman turns slowly toward him. "You looked," she whispers. He blinks and she's gone. The passenger seat is empty, soaked only with rainwater. His coffee cup spills, rolling onto the floor. The hum of the car engine sounds louder now, strained, like something's wrong beneath the hood. Panicked, Ryan grabs his phone. No signal. He tries to start driving again, but the headlights flicker, sputtering as the battery struggles. In the faint light, he sees something outside the windshield. Faint handprints forming on the glass, from the outside. He slams the gas pedal, heart hammering, the car roaring back into motion. But the fog doesn't end. The odometer flicks higher, yet every few seconds, the same road sign passes by. Next gas, 28 miles. It's looping. He's trapped. He slams the steering wheel, shouting into the night. "What do you want from me?" A voice answers from the back seat. "You stopped." Ryan turns. The camera pans slowly, his eyes wide, trembling, until we see her. The woman sits in the back seat now, face blank, eyes black and shining like wet glass. Her mouth opens, not to speak, but to hum. A low, vibrating tune, familiar. The same one Ellen heard in the previous story. The hum builds, the car shaking. Lights flicker. The sound is inside his skull now, vibrating his thoughts into static. He screams, covering his ears, but it doesn't stop. It never stops. Cut to black. The hum fades into silence. The narrator's voice returns. Cold, distant, reflective. They found his car the next morning. Headlights still on. Doors locked from the inside. No sign of him. But every night since, when the fog rolls over that stretch of road, drivers swear they see a figure standing by the shoulder waiting. The sound of rain fades in again, gentle, persistent. Then, a single note hums through the dark, blending perfectly into the transition for the next story. The story opens with a slow drone shot sweeping over misty pine trees at dawn, the sunlight weak and fractured through the fog. Nestled between the woods and a crumbling road lies Black Hollow Inn, an old, forgotten boarding house that once hosted travelers in the early 1900s. Its roof is half collapsed, its windows gaping like blind eyes. The sign outside sways on rusted chains, its letters barely legible. The narrator's voice drifts in, low and steady. Some places remember. They remember the faces, the voices, the things done inside their walls. But memory in places like this doesn't fade. It festers. Enter Grace Mallory, 29, a freelance photographer drawn to abandoned places. She's quiet, introspective, her camera always slung around her neck like a protective charm. Her friends joke that she's more comfortable among ghosts than the living. Recently, she's been hired to shoot haunted architecture for a travel magazine, a job that's taken her to many strange locations. But Black Hollow feels different. It's not just empty, it feels aware. The filmic tone is muted, cold daylight, faint blue undertones, the echo of distant crows. Grace walks through the front door, the wood groaning beneath her weight. Her flashlight cuts through dust and cobwebs, catching brief glimpses of torn wallpaper and furniture half swallowed by time. Everything smells of damp wood and decay. She moves through the halls, her camera clicking every few steps. In the parlor, she finds it. A tall, ornate mirror covered by a white sheet. The edges of the frame are carved with twisting vines and faces worn smooth with age. The light shifts subtly, as though the air thickens around her. Grace hesitates, then pulls the sheet away. Dust blooms into the air, and for the first time we see the mirror. Its glass is spotless, impossibly clear despite the ruin around it. Her reflection stares back, but there's something off. The lighting doesn't quite match. Her reflection's breath fogs the glass. Hers doesn't. She steps closer. The hum of silence deepens until it's almost sound. She raises her camera and takes a photo. The flash bursts, momentarily filling the room with white. When the light fades, her reflection hasn't moved. It's still looking directly into the lens, smiling faintly, even though she isn't. Grace freezes. Her pulse quickens. She takes a step back. The smile in the glass widens. The score begins to rise, low strings, dissonant and slow. She turns away, refusing to look again, telling herself it's a trick of the light. But as she walks down the hallway, every mirror, every reflective surface, broken glass, a puddle on the floor, a picture frame, catches a flicker of her reflection watching her from behind. She tries to leave, but the front door won't budge. Her keys don't work. The windows show only fog outside, like the world has vanished. Her breath shakes as she whispers, "Hello." The echo bounces back slightly delayed, softer, but with a voice that isn't hers. "Stay." Her camera strap slips from her shoulder as she turns slowly. The mirror is at the end of the hall now, though she never moved it. Its surface ripples like water. A shape appears within it, her reflection, standing inside, one hand pressed against the glass. Only now its eyes are black and hollow. "You don't belong here," it whispers, though its lips don't move. The camera follows Grace as she runs upstairs, the sound of her boots echoing like footsteps chasing her. She slams the door to an upstairs room and locks it, panting. Her flashlight flickers once, twice, then dies. Darkness. In the faint moonlight, she sees another mirror on the wall. Smaller, oval-shaped, covered by a cloth. Trembling, she tears it down, throws it aside. The mirror lands face down with a sharp crack, the glass splintering. For a heartbeat, silence. Then a whisper. Low, angry, countless voices overlapping. The shattered pieces begin to move. They crawl slowly across the floor, aligning themselves into the shape of a perfect circle. Grace backs into the corner, hands trembling. The fragments pulse with light. Her reflection forms again, piece by piece, across the floor, eyes blinking from the shards. It smiles, blood-red light seeping from the cracks. "You took our picture," it hisses. The mirror on the wall bursts open like water under pressure. A hand shoots out, grabbing her wrist, pulling her toward the glass. Her scream echoes, warped, distorted. She claws at the floor, nails scraping wood, as the reflection drags her halfway inside. Her camera goes off one last time, blinding white light filling the screen. Cut to silence. The next shot is of the parlor again, daylight filtering through the windows. The mirror stands perfectly still. Grace's camera lies on the floor, lens cracked. The screen flickers, showing the last photo taken. An image of the room empty, except for her reflection in the glass, smiling from the other side. The narrator's voice returns, low and haunting. "They say if you visit the Black Hollow Inn and stare too long into that mirror, you might see her. Not standing beside you, but behind you, smiling, waiting to trade places." The scene opens with the faint sound of wind moving through empty fields, soft, rhythmic, almost soothing. The camera pans slowly across a quiet landscape at dawn. A fog drifts lazily over the ground, turning everything into ghostly silhouettes. A fence leaning under its own weight, an old tree with branches like arms reaching into the sky, a single light glowing in the distance. The voice of the narrator emerges, calm and measured, carrying a note of melancholy. "We tell ourselves stories to explain the unexplainable. We convince ourselves that what we see or think we see can be traced back to reason. But what if the reason itself is the illusion? What if fear isn't a reaction, but a message?" The tone shifts here, less like a horror tale, more like an essay whispered by someone who's seen too much. The pacing slows, pulling the audience into a contemplative silence. Cut to a dimly lit room. A tape recorder spins on a table. Beside it, old photographs, some blurred, some burnt at the edges. Faces half remembered. The narrator's voice continues as the visuals fade between fragments of the previous stories. Ellen's humming house, the fog-choked highway, the mirror at the inn. Every story you've heard tonight carries a pattern, a hum beneath the surface, a rhythm that connects them all. You've felt it, haven't you? That faint vibration, the one that sits in the back of your skull when the lights go out. A faint background sound builds, that same low hum, like an echo rising from the walls. The light in the room flickers once, twice. The tape recorder clicks, then begins to rewind itself slowly. There's something strange about fear, the narrator muses. It doesn't only live inside people. It leaves residue, a kind of echo, like fingerprints on glass, like a song that refuses to stop playing. The visuals become increasingly abstract. Close-ups of cracked mirrors, raindrops trembling on glass, a slow zoom into a flickering light bulb. The hum grows more distinct, weaving through the scene like a hidden melody. We spend our lives walking a thin line between what's real and what isn't. Most of us pretend not to notice when the world bends. But once you do notice, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. A long pause, only the sound of the tape spinning, the faint hum, and the rhythmic tick of a clock. The lighting in the room grows warmer, softer, but the shadows in the corners begin to move subtly, like they're breathing. The camera lingers on a dusty photograph pinned to the wall, a family portrait. The faces are smiling, but faint distortions ripple through the image. Their eyes, on closer inspection, are slightly blurred, as if captured in motion. Fear isn't a thing that visits us, the narrator continues. It's something that waits for us, quietly, patiently, in the spaces between sound and silence. The tape recorder stops abruptly with a loud click. Silence floods the room. The fog outside thickens, seeping through the window cracks. A single drop of water falls from the ceiling, landing on the tape reel. The moment feels suspended in time. Then the light flickers again, and in the reflection of the window there's a faint figure standing behind the camera. Still, watching. You've heard 6 stories tonight, the voice says, softer now, almost trembling. And yet, it feels like one, doesn't it? Like every sound, every whisper, every hum was leading you somewhere. The hum swells again, low and resonant, vibrating through the floorboards. The reflection in the glass seems to move closer, though the camera doesn't. If you listen closely, the narrator whispers. You might hear it now in your own room, the same tone, the same frequency. Maybe it's just in your head, or maybe it isn't. Faint knock echoes once, twice. It doesn't come from within the story. It feels external, real, like it came from the listener's side of the screen. Silence again. The voice grows distant, fading into static. The line between reality and nightmare was never really a line. It's a door, and doors eventually open. The hum cuts out abruptly. For several seconds, total quiet. Then, just as the viewer begins to relax, a faint whisper. A woman's voice, barely audible, breathes into the dark. Don't stop listening. The final sound before the fade to black is a heartbeat. Slow, deep, rhythmic, syncing perfectly with the low thrum of the hum returning beneath it. The narrator's voice returns one last time. Steady, cold, almost resigned. Because what comes next has been waiting for you all along. It begins in a cramped, dimly lit apartment in downtown Chicago. The glow from a single computer screen bathes the room in pale blue. Cables snake across the floor like veins, connecting monitors, recording devices, and old audio equipment stacked in towers. The faint buzz of electronics fills the silence, a constant undercurrent of static and low hum. The camera pans slowly across the cluttered desk. Notebooks scrawled with strange frequency graphs, coffee-stained papers, and a recording labeled in shaky handwriting. Test 47, the frequency that shouldn't exist. This is the world of Nathan Cole, a 32-year-old audio engineer turned obsessive researcher. He's gaunt, unshaven, eyes bloodshot from too many nights awake. Once, he designed soundscapes for films. Now, he chases whispers, literal ones, buried in forgotten radio signals and dead frequencies. He's convinced there's something alive in the noise. The first sound we hear is a distorted radio signal, rhythmic, pulsing, like Morse code. But as the camera closes in, it's clear the rhythm isn't random. It's breathing. Nathan records everything. His voice on the tape trembles slightly. Every signal has a pattern. Every pattern has a source. But this one isn't coming from any station I can trace. He adjusts the knobs on his console, isolating the frequency. The hum grows louder, deeper, resonating in the walls. His coffee cup trembles on the table. A low vibration moves through the room. Not sound, but movement, as if something invisible is responding. He pauses, staring at the waveform dancing on the monitor. The shape looks disturbingly human. A pulse pattern irregular, but familiar. A heartbeat. He laughs nervously, speaking into the recorder. This isn't possible. It's not. The lights flicker. The monitor glitches. The waveform stretches into a spiral, the hum splitting into layered tones. Beneath it, a faint voice whispers. A woman's voice. Slow. Drawn out. I can hear you too. Nathan freezes. His breath catches. The waveform on the screen changes again, now displaying words forming from the sound. The letters crawl across the display. Why did you listen? The scene shifts, rapid cuts, shaky camera movements. Nathan frantically pulls cords, shuts off devices, unplugs the main system, but the sound doesn't stop. The hum keeps going, steady and low. The unplugged speakers vibrate by themselves. He slams his hands over his ears. It's not real. It's feedback. Just feedback. But deep beneath his voice, the whisper answers, perfectly synchronized with his breathing. Then why can you feel it? The camera tightens on his face. Beads of sweat glistening, his pupils dilated. The room feels smaller now, closing in, the shadows deepening at the edges. The hum grows denser, warping the air, making the light flicker with every pulse. He grabs his recorder and begins documenting again. Desperate, panicked. It's spreading through the wiring, through the walls. The frequency, it's resonating with everything. The visuals distort slightly, the frame bending as if under invisible pressure. Nathan's voice cracks. He points the camera toward the corner of the room. Nothing visible, but the shadows tremble as though reacting to the sound. Then a single sharp tone cuts through, piercing, metallic like feedback. His computer reboots on its own. The screen flashes white, then black, then displays a live feed of Nathan, sitting in the dark. But the problem is, he's not recording anymore. The camera is off. On screen, his reflection in the monitor begins to move independently, slowly raising its head, lips parting into a faint, knowing smile. The hum deepens again, vibrating the air until the frame itself shakes. Nathan's breath quickens. Stop it, he whispers. The reflection tilts its head, still smiling. You brought us back. The lights die completely. The room is swallowed in pitch black. The only thing left is the sound, that infernal, pulsing frequency. It rises and falls like breath, surrounding him from every direction. He screams, the recorder falling to the ground with a sharp clatter. The hum spikes, deafening, metallic, then cuts abruptly. Silence. Cut to black. A moment passes before we hear the soft click of a tape player starting up again. The static clears, and a new voice speaks. Calm, detached, but trembling slightly. This recording was found in Nathan Cole's apartment on June 4, 2019. No sign of him was ever discovered. But every few nights since, emergency frequencies in the area spike with the same pattern, a low hum identical to the one in his tapes. The scene shifts to an empty radio tower standing against a night sky. Lightning flashes in the distance. The tower hums faintly, lights flickering along its spine. The camera pushes closer, closer, until the sound fills the entire space. Then silence again. A soft voice, almost indistinguishable, emerges from the static. A woman's whisper, the same one Nathan heard. You're hearing this now because you're tuned in. The hum swells, low, alive, vibrating the floor, until the screen trembles once more. And once you hear it, the voice breathes. You can never turn it off. Cut to silence. The narrator's voice returns one last time, calm but heavy, resonating with finality. Some stories end in screams, some in silence, but others keep playing. A sound, a whisper, a memory that loops forever, waiting for the next person to listen. The sound of static fades into a soft heartbeat rhythm. Slow, deep, endless. Then, the screen fades to black, leaving only the faint hum still audible in the distance. A pause. Then the final whisper. Faint, fragile, but clear enough to send a chill down the spine. You're still listening, aren't you? The screen opens with a slow aerial shot of a sprawling city at night, skyscrapers piercing the sky like jagged teeth. Neon signs flicker, casting fractured light onto rain-slick streets below. The camera slowly descends into an alleyway where shadows pool thick and dark, stretching unnaturally across the walls. The hum from previous stories returns faintly, a spectral thread connecting everything the audience has witnessed. The narrator's voice enters, low, deliberate, cinematic. Every story you've heard tonight was separate, but not entirely. Each thread of fear, each whisper, each shadow, they are all connected. A web stretching through time and space, feeding on curiosity, on attention, on the simple act of listening. The scene shifts rapidly. Glimpses of Ellen's humming house, the mirror at Black Hollow Inn, Nathan's frequency, the midnight visitor, and Kento's dive in Okinawa. The images flicker, overlapping like memories bleeding into one another. The camera lingers on small details, a reflection in a window, a handprint in the dust, a faint pulse in the walls. Fear is not only a reaction. It's a predator, patient, intelligent. It remembers the faces of those who dared to look too closely. It shapes itself around you, finds your weaknesses, your curiosity, and never lets go. We return to the city streets. A lone figure walks under a flickering streetlight. Their silhouette is human, but something about the way it moves is off, gliding, almost floating, limbs unnaturally precise. The camera cuts to close-ups. Eyes wide, watching from windows, reflections that don't match reality. The faint hum grows louder, threading through every sound. The distant wail of a siren, the drip of water in a gutter, the soft whisper of the wind between buildings. The narrator continues, more urgent now, almost whispering directly into the listener's ear. Some of you are sitting alone. Some of you are with friends. Some are trying to convince yourselves none of this is real. But that doesn't matter. Fear doesn't need permission. Once you've seen it, once you've heard it, it knows you. The camera plunges down into the subway, dark tunnels stretching endlessly beneath the city. Shadows move against the walls, long, twisting, impossible. We hear the faint footsteps of unseen entities, echoing with a metallic rhythm. The hum pulses in time, growing louder with every step. It isn't about ghosts or spirits or monsters. It's about the space between what is and what could be. The places where your mind stretches thin, where reality and nightmare overlap. That is where it lives. Cut to an empty apartment. Rain streaks the window, casting streaks of light across the floor. A reflection appears in the glass. A face not entirely human, watching silently. A heartbeat begins in the audio, slow and rhythmic. The camera pans to a mirror on the wall. Faint words appear, glowing slightly. You are not alone. The hum grows intense, vibrating the walls, rattling glass. The reflections in every surface begin to move independently, twisting, smiling, whispering. A montage of all 6 stories flashes rapidly. The diving wreck, the roommate, the humming house, the midnight visitor, the black hollow mirror, and Nathan's frequency. All overlapping, all converging. Every story was a doorway, every whisper a step closer. And now, the web is complete. And you, listener, you are part of it. The camera pulls back slowly, rising above the city once more. The streets look normal, quiet, but if you look closely, shadows move with a life of their own. The hum persists, low and almost imperceptible, threading through the city, through time, through you. Fear doesn't end. It doesn't sleep. It waits, patient, in the silence after the story ends. And sometimes, if you listen closely, it calls your name. A faint whisper emerges from the darkness, soft, chilling, intimate. You shouldn't have listened. The screen cuts to black. Total silence. A heartbeat lingers for a few seconds, then fades. The hum returns briefly, then disappears, leaving the viewer in a still, heavy quiet that stretches beyond the end of the video. The narrator's final words echo, barely audible, yet resonant. The stories never truly end, because the shadows never forget. Fade out completely. The scene opens in near silence, the faint glow of twilight filtering through half-closed blinds. A single candle flickers on a small wooden table, casting elongated shadows across the room. Dust drifts lazily in the shafts of light, each particle catching briefly before falling back into darkness. The camera pans slowly across scattered objects. An old tape recorder, a cracked photograph, a notebook filled with illegible scribbles, remnants of stories already told. The narrator's voice returns, soft, reflective, carrying a weight of finality. Stories end, or at least that's what we tell ourselves. But stories are not just words. They are vibrations, memories, echoes, things that linger long after the pages are closed. The recording stopped, the lights switched off. A soft wind brushes against the window pane. Outside, the world moves on. Indifferent, streetlights flicker, distant cars hum. The occasional bark of a dog pierces the night. Yet inside, the room feels alive, the air vibrating with subtle energy, almost imperceptible, like a hum in the bones. Every place has its echoes, every person a memory left behind, and every fear, once felt deeply enough, refuses to vanish. It folds into the walls, slips into the shadows, and waits, patient, persistent, for the next moment, the next listener, the next heartbeat. The camera focuses on the candle's flame. It flickers violently for a moment, as if reacting to an unseen presence, then stabilizes. The soundscape adds a soft, low hum in the background, reminiscent of the frequencies heard in the previous stories. It is almost comforting, yet deeply unsettling, familiar, yet alien. You've heard them tonight, the haunted house that hummed, the mirror that remembered, the frequency that shouldn't exist. Each story was a door. Some closed behind you, others remained ajar, and some never closed at all. Close-ups reveal subtle, unnerving details. A reflection in a cracked window that doesn't match the figure in the room, shadows stretching unnaturally long, the faint outline of a face in the candlelight, gone when the camera shifts. The pacing is deliberate, slow, allowing tension to settle, then rise gently with each new detail. The echoes are patient. They do not rush. They do not announce themselves. They wait in the corners of your mind, in the quiet moments when the world is asleep. And sometimes, just sometimes, you will hear them again. The camera slowly tilts upward, revealing the ceiling where faint patterns of shadows writhe subtly. The hum grows slightly, just enough to be felt rather than heard, resonating in the chest, like a memory pressing against the ribcage. This is the final story, or perhaps the first of many. Because once a fear is known, once an echo is heard, it cannot be unlearned. It travels with you, silent, patient, waiting for the next moment to remind you. The candle flickers one last time and extinguishes. Darkness fills the room completely. A faint whisper trails in the silence, almost too soft to catch, but unmistakable. We never leave. The camera lingers in blackness for a long beat. The soft hum fades into total silence. Then the screen slowly fades to black, leaving the listener with an uneasy, lingering sensation, the kind that creeps back in quiet moments long after the video has ended. End of epilogue.